Imagine this, you're doing everything that would lead to success. You get a degree, you get a job, now your life's meant to be set. But what happens when that perfect plan crumbles? In this documentary, I'm going to take you through my journey from starting in humble beginnings with flats in Heilbrow to buying the property behind me and reaching financial independence through property. Buckle up, it's going to be a fun ride. So growing up, I always wanted to be a writer. That was my dream. But when I told my friends, my peers, my teachers, my family, they all laughed at me and said, you can't write for a living. You can't do what you love for a living. You've got to get a degree. You've got to get a job. You've got to do what you don't love and make money. And then you can write on the weekends. And I didn't have any other perspective, so I decided to follow them. And I studied. I went to University of Pretoria and I studied a degree in computer science. And then I started working in a global corporate known as Dimension Data. And I followed that system. And it was fine. For the first 6 or 12 months, I enjoyed the whole corporate world. I enjoyed getting up early and arriving home late, and I felt productive, and I got that salary at the end of the month. But something started happening. Every Thursday I started getting a smile on my face because I knew Friday was coming and Saturday was coming, and then Sunday I started feeling this pit in my stomach because I knew Blue Monday was coming and Treacherous Tuesday was coming and Woeful Wednesday was coming. And I realized that I was wishing most of my days away. I was only enjoying the Friday nights, the Saturdays, and then Sunday I started feeling that ache because I wasn't fulfilled. I wasn't doing what I loved. I was a slave to the system. And then I heard that property was a great investment class. So I bought my first property, a property in Fourways, 2-bedroom apartment. And I thought, geez, property always goes up in value. It's always a great investment, but that wasn't the case. This was a liability. What I was renting it out for wasn't covering all the costs. There wasn't really rental escalation. There was zero capital growth. And I was sitting with a shortfall, paying somebody else's lifestyle to try and recover the funds. And it just didn't make sense. And then my life changed in one single day. I was called into the HR office at Dimension Data, and I had the breakup speech, it's not me, it's you, and I was the problem. I wasn't arriving at work on time. I wasn't doing my emails. I wasn't doing my work because I wasn't fulfilled. I felt stuck. And although it felt like the worst thing that ever happened to me, that day that I got fired was the turning point of my life. And I'm reminded of Cortez, who was a Spanish explorer who in 1519 went to Mexico. And as he landed at the shores and he saw the Mexican army that he was about to fight, he saw that they were completely outnumbered, and he saw that his men were scared and frightened and overwhelmed. And he instructed them to burn the boats. And that was his way of saying to his team that we don't have a plan B. We don't have an option here. We only have one option, and that is to win. And being fired taught me that. It said, you can fail at what you don't want. You might as well go after what you love and don't have a backup plan. And that's, when I started taking property seriously. With all this free time on my hand after getting fired, I dove into self-development. I went to seminars, did workshops, read books, and I stumbled on a property workshop hosted by Robert Kiyosaki, author of Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And he taught us that there is a possibility that you can get cash flow positive properties from day one. Now, cash flow was an anomaly for me. I didn't think it existed. I thought every property was like that Fourways liability that I had where I was financing my tenant's lifestyle. But he explained that there are possibilities to find properties where the rental income can cover the monthly expenses, the bond, the insurance, the rates and taxes, the levies, and still leave you with a monthly profit. But the trick is finding these deals. Now, as much as Robert Kiyosaki is a knowledgeable person when it comes to property, most of his investments are in the US, which kind of made it hard for it to be applicable in the South African market. Now, I wanted to fast track my success, so I hired a coach. I paid a premium fee, but I got somebody with local experience, and I was able to take his knowledge and apply it myself to fast track my success. My first ever cash flow positive property was bought in Heilbrow. It was a 2-bedroom apartment in Berea Towers. And I know what you're thinking, why the hell was I in Heilbrow? The truth is, I went onto Property 24 and I searched for the cheapest property. I went on those filters and I went for low to high, and the cheapest property in the whole of South Africa was in Hillbrow. I decided to go and view it. That building was hijacked, that unit was hijacked, so I obviously didn't proceed with that one, but it opened my eyes up to the idea that maybe inner cities is where the cash flow is. And that first Hillbrow property was a great purchase. I got it for 200,000. It's making 4,800 Rand in monthly income. It was covering its bond, its expenses, its rates and taxes, insurance, and it left me with 900 Rand in cash flow. And that 900 Rand added to my affordability, meaning I was able to go and get more lending from the bank. And that's kind of how I started, and I started scaling. I got to 5 of these single lets in Hillbrow, and then I found Berea, and I bought 3 or 4 units in Berea. Then I bought in Sunnyside in Arcadia because I wanted to test out the Pretoria market. And at a point where I got about 15 to 20 of these single lets, I realized that there was a massive risk in the inner city, and that risk is the body corporate. You see, when you buy a building, let's say a 100-unit block of flats, and you buy the perfect unit and you've got the perfect tenant and everything's fine, but the way that that block of flats is not run well, then your investment erodes. And that's what a body corporate is. That is the group of individuals that are in charge of maintaining the exterior of the building, paying your council bills, etc. So unfortunately, there's a lot of corruption in our country, and the inner city is not an exception. There's a lot of these buildings that are mismanaged, and I just found myself buying these flats, and they were doing well, and then eventually the body corporate stopped paying the municipal accounts, and then the electricity was switched off at the building, and my tenants started to become delinquent. And so I ended up selling everything that I had in the inner city, and I decided to go and look for a small block of flats that I could start my investment journey. Again, I went to my trusty Google and I searched for blocks of flats for sale, and I looked for the cheapest ones, and the one that came up was in Rosettenville. And I went to go and view that building, and again, it was hijacked, so I didn't proceed with that specific unit. But I came to realize that Joburg South, the Old South, is pretty attractive. I mean, you've got these 4, 6, 10, 12 unit buildings that are pretty cheap, and if you run them and manage them well, you get a decent return. So my first ever property, I bought cash using the funds that I'd made from those sales from the single lets, and I bought a building called Elro Court, 6 times 2 bedrooms on a very busy street just off the main road at Rosettenville. And oh man, I paid my school fees for sure. I had water leaking for about 3 months before I was even aware of it, so my water bill was like 80,000 over those 3 months. I had 2 delinquent tenants that I had to spend like 50 grand each to evict. So I don't think I made a great return on investment there. In fact, I probably lost more than I made. But I got exposure, and a lot of times success is like this, right? You slowly go up to the top, but you're going to have to go a couple steps back, a couple steps forward, a couple steps to the side. And that was Elro Court for me. It wasn't an investment in money, it was an investment in my knowledge and my understanding. The second deal that I did was a lot better. It was Jaden Court, and this building's also 6 times 2 bedrooms in a slightly better area in Kenilworth, and I was able to get the bank to finance me on that deal, which was fantastic. Then my third block of flats was Centurion Place, which is 4 times 3 bedrooms, and I bought this with a friend of mine. I was able to convince him to partner up with me. I showed him my 2 previous deals. I told him the numbers, and he had a bit of extra capital, so we went in there as 50-50 JV shareholders, and now we own this building together. And then my 4th transaction was Elof Court, which is 9 times 2 bedrooms in Turfentine, and that was the first time that I was able to get an angel investor to give me money and to fund the transaction. And the reason why I'm telling you this is not to impress you, but rather to impress upon you that you start small. I started with 1 80 square meter 2-bedroom flat in the middle of Hillbrow, and now I'm doing transactions where I buy 30, 40 units at a time. And it's all about taking those baby steps, growing, continually investing in your self-growth and in your knowledge. You're going to have to invest those 10 years of your life to have that 1 year that changes and you become that overnight success. Now, the reason why I do these YouTube videos and these case studies is to continue building my brand so that I can access more and more capital, and being able to reach so many people via social media has given me the capital to be able to do the most exciting deal yet. So through the growth of my social media presence, I've been able to access a lot more capital, and we were able to buy the building behind me. This is a mixed use, massive block of flats. It's got the retail portion at the bottom. It's got 4 floors of offices and a residential penthouse at the top. We secured it for 7 million, even though it's worth 11 million, meaning we got 4 million of equity just off buying this property. This building generates over 200,000 Rand in monthly revenue, giving a gross yield of 34% and makes this an outlier in terms of the best deal I've ever executed on. I leverage two things in this business: OPM, OPT. OPM is other people's money. Sometimes I use the bank's money, sometimes private money, sometimes I use creative money like the seller's finance. OPT is other people's time. I delegate the management of these buildings to a team, buying back my time so that I can focus on high priority tasks such as finding more money and finding great deals. It's taken over 10 years of grinding and hard work, but I'm in a position now where I'm financially independent, meaning that I earn enough passively through my property portfolio that I can maintain my current lifestyle costs. I don't take any money out of my property business. In fact, I'm still employed and I live well below my means, and all that I do is all the profit that my property business makes gets reinvested for compound growth. Through my coaching program, I can hold your hand through the process of buying one of these investments or getting started in the property game. Through my partnership model, you get to leverage my team, my skills, and my time, and I can execute one of these deals on our behalf, giving a great internal rate of return. Looking back, this was a hard journey, and if I knew what I knew now, I might not do it again. Having to deal with evictions and maintenance and bad agents, having to deal with people not believing in me, friends thinking I'm crazy, family being worried about me, losing girlfriends because I was working every weekend and not interested in going out and partying and wasting my money, having to sacrifice and not spend on things that I want, not buying PlayStations or cars or these nice things because I needed money to invest in these assets that will only pay in the long term. 10, 12 years ago when I started this, I didn't have any disposable income. I didn't have any money, and I was buying these assets in the hope that in 10 years' time they would pay off, and now they have. But man, that was a journey, and that was tough. But I always go back to Les Brown. He says that if you want to have an easy life, do what is hard. Think about that. If you want to have an easy life, do what is hard. Go to gym, work on your relationships, delay gratification, put money away for saving and investment, do the hard things, and later on your life will be easy. Versus the opposite, what most people do is they do what is easy, life becomes hard. They sit on the couch, they watch TV, they eat snacks, they eat fast food, they don't fixate on improving their relationships, they don't read, they don't invest in their knowledge, they do the easy stuff. And it's easy in the moment, but 10 years down the line, you look back and you think, now I've got a hard life, now I can't afford my bills. My relationship is not where I want it to be. My physical health is not where I want it to be. So I hope that this inspires you to not take the easy route, to take the path less traveled. Thank you so much for watching my content, for sharing, for giving your commentary, and for liking all my stuff. It is an honor for me to be able to do what I love for a living, like creating content. And until I meet you in person, happy investing.